Hello. This won't be a very long live stream. I'm just going to address one issue that came up last night on a live stream. I won't be using anybody's name. So anyway, that was J.D. Souther. That happened many years ago at the Farm Aid concert. At any rate, so I'm going to go ahead and address some things. It's an issue really, I would say, that probably affects or will affect all of us here on social media, particularly on YouTube at some point, if it hasn't already. So it has to do with freedom of speech, and that is the topic at the moment, really, all across our country and further around the world. So I would say no one deserves to die over free speech. I hope everyone would, well, I don't think everyone does agree with that, but I think in a humanitarian world they would. Nor should anyone lose their job over free speech. So I do want to talk a little bit about it, but particularly having to do with something closer to home within our own little community. I'm going to try not to make anything ad hominem or personal at all. But as we all know, social media is a source of great unhappiness. Unfortunately, you wouldn't think it would be, but it is. And what can we do about that? Do we want it to be a happier place? Well, unhappiness usually comes from someone exercising free speech. So I do want to address something else. I'm going to address the freedom not to speak. The freedom not to speak. We have that freedom as well, you know. In fact, even if we have some weightier issues and emotional, say your emotions are running really high, that doesn't mean we have to speak on them or in a given circumstance or make a video and post it. That's an option for us. And here's one that came up last night in a live stream that I do want to address without mentioning anyone's name. And I guess the question I'd start off with would be, are you and I obligated to publicly defend someone that is being gone after or being attacked? So we've all seen it. I mean, it happens every time, almost every time people go live. Someone's going to be the brunt of an insult or something along those lines. So, and when that happens, and as I heard last night, someone was saying that, in fact, my name was mentioned and a few others. Why aren't we speaking up? So I did want to address why I'm not speaking up sometimes. Am I obligated to defend everyone in any given circumstance? I can't do it if I'm not there, but if I am there, I suppose it's an option for me. So, and I've publicly actually done that, but nearly every time I've done it, it's had real serious consequences and blowback, and hasn't always turned out that well, regardless of the sensitivity I might use. So I personally did not sign up, and I bet you didn't either, or receive a salary to be the morality the morality police on YouTube, right? Was that a job any of us signed up for? I don't think it was. I certainly didn't. So my first point is we are all adults here. Right? Every one of us are adults. Chronologically, are we emotionally? Well, at times perhaps we don't behave like adults. There's a whole gamut in the maturity that we notice online here, especially in our little community. So, but when we take people, take that route of calling someone out, which I have done, and I'm sure some of you have as well, it can lead to something which is not a good thing, I guess. I didn't know much about it, but it's called virtue signaling. Welcome, Janie. Good to see you. Glad you're here. I'm talking about not just freedom of speech, but freedom not to speak. That's the topic. Freedom not to speak. Last night, someone was questioning, and my name came up quite a few times. Why didn't I speak out? And sometimes when you do speak out, it can explode in your face, and someone will say, "Oh, look at he's virtual," or he or she is virtue signaling. Accusations like that can fly. Well, as I say, I have never been paid a salary to be the morality policeman on YouTube. I just haven't. I didn't sign up for that. So when people take that route, and when they do call people out, it can have quite a few consequences. I've had 2 or 3 that blew up completely in my face, and I tried to do it as sensitively as I could. So I have some other ideas about how to go about this, and this is what I have tried to do and employ in my own life. Number 1, speak privately to people. I mean, after all, if you're in the middle of a live stream and someone's saying things that aren't too nice, sure, you could call it out and make that person very angry. You have to ask yourself, why are they speaking that way in the first place? There's probably something pretty serious that would lead them to be making statements that could be inflammatory. So is the timing right? Is the timing right to call someone out? And I've seen it, and it's happened to me, blow up in my face. So I would say the options, and I'm taking these options rather than usually challenging someone, which doesn't usually turn out too well, regardless of how good you go about trying to do it. Number 1, speak privately to that person, maybe after the stream is over with. Go to them and say, hey, look, I could see what was going on. You feel things very deeply. We're all very emotive at times. But, have you thought about this or that, maybe a different option? And they usually receive that a lot better because it's private. The ego is not involved, right? There's not a lot going on. So Janie says, we all have a right to decide what we wish to speak on and when we take a pass. Yeah, and I think that's for good reason. For very good reason. Scott Boogie. That's interesting. I like that. Good afternoon to you as well. Thank you for saying that. So one of the options or alternatives to maybe creating even more tension by calling someone out directly when things are so fragile like the ego, speak privately behind the scenes. Number two, which I'm trying to employ myself, speak by example. Let your example be your word. Try to do things right. Improve. I'm trying to always improve on my behavior online. And not be a gossip, not be someone who's going to put someone in a bad position, not to call them out necessarily by name, and not to create, a really negative circumstance, which is so easy to do when so many do it. And also try not to retaliate. A lot of times things will, it may not be worth it, and let someone yank your chain. I don't think anybody wants to be in that circumstance. So maybe just lead by example. If you're going to set a good example, that's a statement, probably a stronger one and a bigger one than anything verbally, like what I'm doing right now. Just lead by example. Those are two things I think we can do. And then ask yourself, number three, when should we do this? When do we respond? I think everybody has a line that, if it's crossed, we're going to probably respond. Janie says, not good. I'm not good at waiting to address things in private. I usually do it in the moment. And I think that's probably very true. In a moment of honesty, if we're going to be honest, that's exactly what most of us do. Because it really, if it's a comment made about you or I, it's going to hit hard. And we're going to want to respond. That's kind of a natural human, it's self-preservation. Someone saying something about you, you want to respond to it. I'm not sure it's always the best thing to respond knee-jerk. I know you're not saying that. But in retrospect, with some reflection, we maybe can put together a much better response that gets the point across and perhaps will give us more mileage and make the circumstances better rather than more inflammatory. So when to respond, maybe take a pause for the cause, right? But when that line is crossed, I think sometimes, and nowadays I don't respond to everything. I think it's more important to move beyond, pettiness where certain things are just not that important. So I try not to respond to everything. No, it's not always best, and you're working on it as well. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do too. So, who wants to have people bully you, right, or being berated, or have people bait you? Because I think baiting is going on all the time. People will say things, well, will this draw them out, and will I get their attention if I say this or if I do that? And I think humans need to be very cognizant of that and very discerning and perhaps more reflective. Some people on here, they just want to fight. Humans at times are enraged. I always say there's no war they wage online on the outside with you and I. That isn't first a war going on inside them because I think that people generally aren't interested in offending someone with words or deeds if they're at peace and happy within themselves. That's my that's my belief. So let's see. Scott says, speak to others the way you would like to be spoken. Yeah, that's the golden rule, isn't it? That's exactly right. Always need to cool off a little bit if the words hurt you, and they often do, and pick your battles wisely. Yeah, I think those are all excellent ideas. I'm glad that others feel the same. I feel the same as you do on that, Scott. I think those are very good words for us to reflect on. There are some issues, though, even if we choose not to respond, they seem to have a long shelf life or lifespan. And but still, I think if we give something traction and respond to a nasty comment, for example, that on social media, it will usually elicit a counter response, and then it continues and has a life of its own. So I try to really just selectively choose the ones where a line has been crossed, where I feel it's important. And I feel about freedom of speech as strongly as I do freedom not to speak. and that we don't have to necessarily. I didn't sign on to protect every single person on YouTube, and I do the best I can. But I hope that most people would realize that we should speak out sometimes. They say silence is golden. Sometimes silence isn't golden. Sometimes silence is another color. Maybe it's yellow, because we don't have the courage to speak out. So there are times we need to. And then there are times when we should perhaps reflect before we do. And one final issue for me is how we come to believe what we believe about each other. So what do you think about Stellar? What do I think about Scott Boogie or Janie or Sweet Wheat or anybody else? What are our feelings about other people? And how do we arrive at that? How does that come to us to believe what we believe about one another? Well, do we arrive at that by listening to the first person that tells us something? Is that a good idea? Or is it a better idea to seek out perhaps other people who might have an alternative view of someone? And here's a really interesting thought. What if you were to actually go to the person in question and talk to them directly? Wouldn't that be amazing? So those would be, in my opinion, alternatives that might improve on what we're doing now. Some people will take their cue on the first thing they hear from someone and they'll run with it. And they'll never really arrive at, or certainly isn't a fair balance. If we were in a court of law and someone said, well, let me tell my side, but I don't want to hear anybody else's side, that would be probably thrown out. Scott says, people that always cause problems on YouTube are showing that they have the problem. I think that's oftentimes quite true. Bullying is a reflection of them. Yeah, that's that internal struggle, I think, that at times maybe we all might have, in which we are struggling, and that struggle spills over into our community. Yeah, good point. Janie says, I rarely get my opinions of people from other people. I trust my own judgment, which sometimes bites me in the butt. Yeah, it can. But I do think that it's important for us to embrace truth as we ourselves have come to know it, rather than simply saying, well, who's going to tell me what to think? And there's a lot of people, it's the easier way to go. Hey, do you like so-and-so? Is Stellar a good guy? Is Janie a good gal? Scott, is that a nice person? Well, if you just listen to the first person, that you're getting one opinion. And there certainly are more than a few opinions. And so I think it would be incumbent for most mature people to say, well, maybe I should give people a little better look than that, a little more fairness, and give them an opportunity to show me who they are. So that would be one other suggestion. I think it's very important. Let's see, what else did I want to say? We talked about, the people who are conflicted or emotionally engaged, sometimes in a very negative way, oftentimes have these, I think Scott's pointing that out, internal issues going on within themselves. And it would be very good if we all could take a good look and start with ourselves. If we want to improve someone else's life, begin by improving our own. That's usually more credible as well, and will be heard by many more people because we're being very serious about it. We're looking at self-improvement before we're trying to pull the speck out of someone else's eye, as it says somewhere. So anyway, the real key would be, in the midst of all of this, which can be heart-wrenching, is how to remain kind and peaceful, if that's even possible. And I think that we can make progress. If there's some element of truth, that we're working on within ourselves, that might be the best place to start. And personal happiness, if you like yourself and you're happy, you're going to be a much nicer person to other people you meet, even if they have rough edges or they're a cold, prickly person. If you like yourself, you'll be able to deal much better with people in that circumstance. I'm just about done. I just had a few thoughts I wanted to share with you. There are, of course, plenty of people that will take it upon themselves to create chaos quite all by themselves, and they're very good at it, and it's habitual. And people say, well, Joe, where are we, Stellar? We're in the drama community. Yes. But I always insist there's good drama and bad drama. Some people say men shouldn't be involved in drama, period. Well, tell that to William Shakespeare. Drama is all about life and living. Sometimes things are needlessly brought forward visibly into the community and spoken and shouldn't be. And some things are said that aren't terribly important, but they create chaos. And I think we should ask ourselves, is that the right approach? Socrates had a whole formula for that, asking us three things. Are we going to accomplish any good in walking down the path and talking about things that we choose to talk about? Is the outcome going to be something positive, or are we going to make things worse? And what's the motivation behind why we do what we do? Are we out for a pound of flesh, an eye for an eye? Are we mad at somebody? Do we have any real reason for being mad at someone, and yet we want to have a go at them? There's a lot of things going on inside we human beings. Janie says, I like drama that is lighthearted and satirical more than the harmful hate flinging. Yeah. And I think that's the good and the bad drama that I would agree with you. Good drama, Jesus was all about drama. I remember one person said to me, Joe, I don't think Jesus would show up on YouTube in these little communities. And I responded, I would think that Jesus would make a beeline for these places because they're the very places that need to hear his message. And I'm not here to proselytize, and I'm not here to convert. I don't have a church of my own. I'm retired. I just simply want to share a few thoughts that maybe would make our life easier and better if we could employ some of them. I don't know if I have any of the right answers, but they're ones that I feel strongly about, and that's why I'm sharing them now. And as I say, what I heard last night, why didn't I speak up? I think it was mentioned about 3 times. And I have certainly done that in the past. It was ironic to me that what was going on at that time, there were people on side chat saying some bad things about someone whose name I said I wouldn't mention names, and I won't mention names. Those were passed by. Matter of fact, the person on panel even read one of them out, but the panel person who had the live stream, for whatever reason, chose not to correct it or address it, which was ironic to me because they were talking about why aren't you jumping in to do the right thing. So I think the freedom of speech and the freedom not to speak is indeed very important. And we have our reasons, but I think we have the ability to decide when it's appropriate and when it's not. As I say, I was never asked to become the moral policeman of YouTube, and I don't think anybody should be doing that. It's not our job. We're all adults here, right? Every one of us are adults. Janie says we are Jesus's targeted demographic. Yeah, that's well put. I like that. There's no place too nasty for Jesus. We don't have to sanitize our life for him to show up. In fact, I think that's what he was accused of. That he was. Why do you hang out with the whores, the prostitutes, the tax collectors, the dregs of society, the worst people in the world you can think of? And they said that of him. That must mean you're like that, huh, Jesus, you hypocrite? And he said, no, sick people need a doctor. Healthy people do not. And of course, the people making accusations were probably the most emotionally and mentally and spiritually ill people that he would deal with, many of whom he couldn't really make much headway with because it requires cooperation. And we have to want to make things better. We want to have to make the community better. If our designs are not to do that, then, and I've kind of come to the conclusion that there may be places where we have to kind of break free. Scripture says, shake the dust from the bottom of your feet, which is symbolic of move on. If you have to. If you can't make headway, don't waste your time. So I have come to the conclusion that there are times, they're pretty rare, but where I have to make a decision, can I stay here or do I have to leave and go there? And otherwise it becomes almost self-abuse. If you're making no headway, why would you remain there? You're using precious time and resources where you could be using them perhaps better. One thing about life is, we cannot control anyone else's response. We can only control our own. And so we make a valid attempt to try to make things better, but that may not always be met with receptivity. Some people don't want that. They would prefer to fight with you. And I mean, I hate to say that, but I think that that's true. I think that most people would agree with that. And that's for their own reasons. I would say, again, the war being waged inside them, their own heart, is what's really the war going on. If you ever met a really happy person, a genuinely joyful person, they would find it almost impossible to launch a crusade of hate against anybody. And as I think Scott was saying earlier, it really reveals what's going on within themselves. That is the story that's being spoken. Scott says, right is right, wrong is wrong, I'll never follow wrong. It should be fun and lighthearted. And yeah, I think that is possible. But again, we have to maybe be a little more cautious about, we can't always open the door to everyone. Because if we do that, then we realize there are people coming in who may cause great chaos. People talk about the border. Well, I think we need to be restrictive at our border and in the borders of our own life here on YouTube as well. When we know there are people who will cause great harm, then don't put yourself in harm's way. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, life is too short for hate and misery. Yeah, that's right. I mean, I'm probably winding the corner of my life. I'll be 76 years old in December. When you're coming down the home stretch, I know the longevity and lifespan of my family, the men in my family. I know how long I've got. I also have my own personal health issues, which could curtail my life, make it much shorter. I don't usually talk about my health or my woes. And for those who do, I think that's good because I think they may need that support. So I don't have any problem with people that do that. Jane says, agree, Scott. I really think that, time is precious, life is precious. We hear people talking about that. Free speech is precious. And the freedom not to have to speak can be one of the wisest decisions we may choose to make. When we choose not to engage, not to make matters worse, not to create more havoc, instead to be a proponent of peace. And sometimes Jesus fell silent in front of Pontius Pilate. There was a reason he did that. And that we have to choose wisely our approach on social media. I didn't have a whole lot more to say. I just did want to, if people want to manufacture drama and hate, that's their decision. I don't really want anything to do with that. I'm not saying I'm a perfect human being because you who know me, who actually know me, know that I'm not. And I would never try to suggest that. But I do feel I'm a work in progress. I'm trying to improve my life. And I think that's what adults try to do. That old expression, adulting. I hadn't heard that back in my studies, but adulting is a good expression. It's about continuing to employ anything we might to make ourselves a better person. And in doing so, we become a better human being to other people that we meet. And really, isn't that the purpose of being here? That's Earth School 101, right? I think that's, if we're all about that, we will leave a good mark on this earth. And for the time that we have, and we don't have any necessarily clue on how much time we do have. Anyway, that's a sign that I usually have talked too long. I get a little scratchy throat. Janie said freedom of speech versus the right to remain silent. Yeah, isn't that's very well put. Yeah, leave a good mark, not a skid mark. Those are keepers. I got to remember those, Janie. I really do appreciate your saying that. And Scott and Sweetweed, I'm not sure. There's not a lot of people weighing in, and that's fine. Sometimes we weigh in, and if we do so in a positive way with a given person, that you weigh in on Side Chat and Stellar's live stream, then other people may say, well, I don't like Stellar. Why are you even there? Why are you doing that? And and it can be, that's how petty at times things can be here. I think we have to be aware of that. So your freedom of speech is at risk as well, because you might feel afraid to speak out when you'd like to. You have something to say, but you're afraid, well, what will be the consequences if I do that, especially among my close friends who want to animate my being, who want to guide and may be disappointed, and they'll let you know. Why were you even over in Stellar side chat? But Janie, thank you. I wasn't hunting for something positive, but I always appreciate it. Thank you. There's a lot to say about this issue, and if I make this too long, nobody will watch it. And a lot of times people don't always come into my live stream, but they might watch it or part of it later on. And the person who did the live stream last night, why I'm doing what I'm doing, without mentioning their name, did mention that they saw part of my live stream earlier, so that's good. Hi, Dolly. Good to see you. Oh, Malarkey. Good thing I didn't cut the stream off too soon. Good to see both of you. Yeah, this isn't really going to be a very long stream. I just wanted to address something that came up last night, and which I think is important, probably will be to all of us. So, malarkey has been around for a very long time. I'm not trying to make you an antique or a dinosaur like myself, Malarkey, but she is a wonderful person. And Dolly, of course, we have a very special friendship and relationship, and I'm so proud of Dolly. Malarkey's history here, much like my own, I've been around 11 years. I mean, I've learned the hard way. I think Malarkey would agree that we do our best. We take things in. We try to learn lessons of life. Sometimes we go about things that aren't always going to be the best or most expeditious way, but hopefully we're all trying to learn from our many mistakes that we make. Okay. Warm tea or hot chocolate, probably the latter, although I do have both. I never was a tea drinker. I've never drank coffee in my life, but I learned to drink tea from my Canadian friends. And so it's a good drink, very healthy as well. Certain types of tea, I would think. That's what I read. So anyway, I don't know if I need to bring up the First Amendment, but there it is, if you want to look at that later. We have the freedom to speak. Much like in the First Amendment, freedom of religion, from religion and for religion, if you choose to experience a life of faith, that's of your own choosing, not someone else's, that is going to impose it upon you. And I suppose freedom of speech, freedom to remain silent. Because on YouTube, everything you say can and will be used against you in another live stream. That was Janie's comment. I'm not going to steal it, but I thought that was very well put. So I've got a few things I need to do today. We do have some sunshine today. We had some rain, which is kind of a sign that in the Pacific Northwest where I live that we're going to have a change in season. So I'm a little bit looking forward to that. We have a natural drought every summer. Vancouver, Canada, Seattle, Portland. That's just the way the weather pattern with the Arctic polar stream. That's how that affects us. And then in the winter we make up for it. We have a lot of snow in the mountains, which becomes fills our reservoirs for water. Memphis Mommy Mars, welcome to you. Good to see you. Doing house stuff, yeah, I've got some of that to do myself as well. I already got a load in the laundry, but I have some things outside as well. So, and I think I owe you a DM, Malarkey. I think something came in. When I finally repaired or fixed WhatsApp, it was really giving me fits. But now I have a little more trouble finding out what messages are left for me, but at least now I can use the app. Evelyn, welcome to you. Good to see you. Good to see you. I wasn't planning on being on too long. I'm trying to see how long I've been on, maybe 35 minutes or so. 4 minutes, or 3.5 minutes of which was a Farm Aid old music video of J.D. Souther, You're Only Lonely. That was always my favorite song years ago. I really enjoyed that song. I have some other songs perhaps I feel a little more strongly about, but that's an oldie but a goodie. And so anyway, I've shared my thoughts. I just wanted to share with you about freedom of speech and freedom not to speak. Because of the live stream that took place last night, I just wanted to address that in a way that's non-confrontational. I didn't mention anyone's name. And that's a sign of respect, especially if that person isn't here. I wasn't able to be there for that entire live stream last night. I just think that if we, honestly, I'll say this, if we really, truly want to resolve issues between ourselves where we have adversaries, I think that the best way to begin to do that is in a private conversation. When we do something publicly, our ego is at stake. There's all kinds of eyes and ears watching things unfold, and it can be very combative, and it can drive the wedge in deeper. And I really believe if we're serious about reconciliation or trying to repair a friendship, it's best we do that privately, at least to try. And that would be a sign that, because our guard is let down. There's not a lot of people watching. We can certainly just say, hey, let's chat. Let's figure this out. But both people have to want it. It will not work if only one person wants reconciliation or to repair a friendship or something. So, Dolly says, I've been without a phone since Friday. Oh, don't I know it. I missed everything too. Yeah, well, the beauty of YouTube is everything is, well, not everything. Most everything is still there. So you'll be able to catch up. Yeah, I think, Evelyn, that's the question in front of me right now. If I find out that, or come to the conclusion based upon what I know, then I think it would be unwise, really, to waste our time continuing to do something, work on something where the interest is genuinely not there. We have, other fields to plow. We have other friends to engage with and positive things to do. And if we can't make headway and you give it all you can, then it's probably better that we cut our losses. I always keep the door open. I don't lock a door behind me if there are changes. But a friendship takes two people. And there's all kinds of us on here in different places with different circumstances, and friendship is not easy because we're thousands of miles away as well. Our friendship is contingent upon a lot of things, many of which we don't all agree with. Someone might say, well, friendship to me means this. Well, it may or may not mean the same to you or I. And so it takes a long time. Look at how long it takes before we choose to engage in anything serious. For example, like marriage. We wouldn't want to fly into that. It takes, some people wake up after several years in marriage and look over at the person lying beside them on the bed and say, who the hell are you? Maybe to themselves if they're wise, but because we continually grow in our awareness of who people are, and the proof of that is we're always coming to know who we are, and that takes a great deal of time as well. We're getting to know ourselves and each other, and we most certainly do not know each other that well. We might say, well, I know enough about someone, I don't want to engage in a friendship, and that may be true, and if that is how you feel, then I wouldn't discourage you from breaking something off. But I do think that when it comes to getting to know each other, rather than relying upon one individual saying to you, here's what I've heard about Stellar, here's what I've heard about Evelyn, or about Malarkey, or Janie, or anybody else, or Dolly, and I'm going to run with that. That's all. That's all I need, and that's unfortunate, because a community helps to define a person, not one individual. We all have adversarial moments, And, you could meet someone and say, well, do you like this person? Oh, I can't stand that person. Well, you're probably not going to get an unbiased review. But if we take an adult approach and we take people seriously and want to be fair and just, then we might say, well, maybe I should check around. Maybe I shouldn't rush to judgment on any one person. Let's see. Evelyn says no reconciliation required. I'm sorry if I skipped some of your messages. Between me and anyone else, I'm not upset with anyone or hurt by anyone. If someone thinks they are fighting with me, they're swinging at the air. Like they say, if someone's going to have a war, one side should just simply stay home, not show up, try to diffuse the situation if possible. It takes two to engage. And if we want to promote peace, then probably we won't go down that path. It takes a great deal of integrity. Most of the time when someone swings at us, we want to swing back. But for the adults among us, I think there are other options and alternatives for us to take. Perhaps you've heard the term "kill them with kindness." try that sometime. Love thy enemy, do good to those that hate you, bless those that curse you. That type of thing. That was recommended by a carpenter you and I might have run across in our life. Janie says, well, thank goodness that didn't have to happen, Dolly. It's good to have you back where you belong. Absolutely. Isn't that in a song? Was that the good to have you back where you belong? Or maybe a TV jingle, I'm not sure. Malarkey says some people are okay to reconcile, but over the years I've learned that if the person has repeatedly behaved badly, then do not reconcile. And I often hear the slogan, I think there's truth in it, if someone shows you who they are, believe them. But if someone else who's adversarial shows you who someone is, get a second opinion. Just like a doctor. If you're not so sure about what you're hearing, you may respect someone's opinion, but that opinion is not perfect. I have yet to meet a perfect person on YouTube. Now, maybe you have, but all of us have our flaws and faults and shortcomings. And we shouldn't be on a pulpit because we're standing on a shaky ground. So I think the first thing to be is humble and say, look, I'm imperfect. I don't do things perfectly, and nor do the people that feed us information. So the adult approach probably would be, like I tell people, fact check. If you're going to decide what you believe on a given subject, say politics, look at left, look at right, and look at center. And there are, I listen to ground news and I listen to straight arrow news. And both of those news sources are nonpartisan, or they choose to demonstrate an openness to hearing from all sides, left, right, and middle. We should do that with each other. We should be open enough to say, maybe I should give a person, the benefit of the doubt and find out who they really are and ask around. Rather than relying upon one person who may have perhaps a grudge or something. And I think I want to take that advice from myself as well, of course. Janie says, Evelyn, Joe Dirt said it best, you want to fight, stick your head up and fight for air. Well, sometimes those types of statements really do put it well. Better than any eloquence I could ever come up with. We do need to decide what's important to us. And then I heard today on Scott's, someone was mentioning about what's the implication of living with so much stress today in our lives, and I think that's an extremely important factor. Stress can shorten our life. Stress can bring on and trigger illness. Headaches are the obvious example of that. So we might want to carefully weigh the consequences and realize that it may not be worth it to our health, to our well-being, and to the well-being of other people. We don't want to be the cause of... There are people bullied so badly, especially young people who are very vulnerable, where they will ultimately take their own life. Oh my, do we want to be partially responsible for anything like that or resembling that, where people will do harm to themselves? We're all children of God, and that is a point I always emphasize. But we argue with our Lord about that because we say, well, no, with the behavior of that person, they're not your child. Well, the good news is we all are. There's no rejects in God's kingdom. Let's see. Oh, Gladys, welcome, Gladys. Gladys, I noticed last night you said what was it you said? I cherry pick scripture. Yeah. I try not to. I try not to. I think it's something, because it is my field of study. I certainly feel very strongly about it. But I try not to Bible punch. I try not to beat anyone over the head with scripture. I don't think that's fair. And you have every right to say what you want. But of course, my right to respond to it. And I want to do it in fairness and in charity and in kindness. But yeah, I think that Scripture is filled, it's a library of books, 73 books, 66 in the Protestant version, 73 in the Roman Catholic Orthodox Bibles. That's a lot of literature. And it's too much reading Middle Eastern literature for us not to cherry pick. We are going to pick something from here or something from there. But hopefully we keep it in its context and can be able to. And if people are going to struggle with something, it's always best to leave an example. Say, here's where I saw you doing this or that, and then we can maybe learn from that and say, because I'm like thinking, well, where did I cherry pick? But Gladys, I am glad you're here. I am glad you're here. Thank you. Larky said, I never met a perfect person in real life. We're all a mixed bag. No matter how much we strive to be our best self. Yeah, 100% with you on that. Yeah, I know. And Dolly, you and I have talked about that. You disagree with that one, child of Hitler, Charles Manson. Or I could add in my own family who was victimized by Ted Bundy. And yet I will not be a victim for the rest of my life of hate. I will not continue to hate someone my whole life. And that's liberation for me. So it's done selfishly. It's done to try to free myself from the hate that can come from the harm a certain individual might do to us. I refuse to let that continue. Larkin says, so glad I made the live one. I know Stellar, I'm sorry, only attracts the best of YouTube. Yeah, I'm not so sure. I haven't said it well, but I think you all understand. Yeah, you know what? I'm just a foot soldier here. I'm nobody special. And I hope people don't resent the fact that I studied where I studied. I feel fortunate and blessed through no bows. I won't take a bow. I was very lucky in my life to get a good education. I share it. I thought it would be important. When I first noticed YouTube, well, I would tell you a little story. My sister, my older sister, I have two older sisters. My older sister, Mary, she said to me, Joe, have you looked at these computers? And this is way back when computers were just coming out. And so I was there with her, and she said, let me show you something. What happens when you Google something, a question? And she said, tell me to Google something. So I said something in my field, like realized eschatology, or some big theological term. And to my surprise and shock, about 100,000 responses came up to realized eschatology or something like that. And I thought, oh my goodness, I got to get a hold of a computer. So she kind of introduced me to computers many, many years ago. And ever since, I think it's important. I was going down a path of trying to tell you something else, and I got caught in diversion there, or digression. So I may not be able to find out where I was going with that. Let's see. I should read. I think Malarkey was making a statement. Yeah, the people that we meet, we attract whoever we attract. And some people may not fancy, or I'm not everyone's cup of tea. That's fine. What I wanted to tell you was, it came back to me, is that when I was new at YouTube and new at just everything online on the superhighway, I did discover YouTube. And people on YouTube were amazing. A lot of people were sharing talents and gifts and expertise, or maybe what they've done for a living. Maybe it's automobile repair, maybe it's plumbing, whatever it might be. And I thought to myself, well, I've got a life too. I've done a few things that I'm not terribly important and good at it, but I've done some things. I could share those. So that was my initial observation and why I kind of ended up here. lots of other things I could say about that. I'm sure all of you would have another story as to why and how you ended up where we are right now. But I try to share what meager gifts I have, and I don't have a lot, but I do have some, and so I try sharing them. But not everyone's interested. So my area of interest is psychology, spirituality, and science. That's why I picked the name Stellar. If you Google the word stellar, it will bring up information about the sun, which is a star, which is stellar, and then there's other things having to do with personality. It wasn't why I picked it. Some people thought I did, but no. I have a love for science and psychology and spirituality, but not everyone does, and it's fine. And so when I do videos, oftentimes it may be in those areas, and it's not on everyone's number one watch list, but I do offer an alternative, and so does everyone else on here. Let's see. We're not the worst. We're not in the worst. No, I think we're not. What's the community they talked about? The knitting community? Watch out for those. I don't know if it's being said in jest or not, but there are communities that are rife with controversy and I always ask myself, are things getting better around here? And I'm not so sure they are, but I think that we can... oftentimes, social media, online experience, is a reflection of what's happening out in the rest of society, in our culture. And I think that that would be very true, because I've not seen anything as combative and disturbing. And the scenario, it does not look good. What's going on right now does not look good. And that's why I think freedom of speech and freedom not to speak, that will continue to be a very important area of our discussion as we go forward in the coming weeks and months. Thank you, Janie. I really appreciate that. I do. Well, you know, it's just a few thoughts, and I'm glad all of you could be here. Sometimes, you know, you get discouraged, you start up a live stream, and I didn't really make any announcements. Some people do that 30-minute thing. I should probably consider doing that, where someone's going to go live, you get the notice, and then, you know, it's more likely to be a better response. Until I do that, people are going to show up late, I suppose, so I should try to incorporate that. Things are getting better around here for me. Good, because I don't go to places where things are getting worse on me. Yeah. See, and it can be as simple as it actually is. Avoid those places and individuals that maybe would be, you know, antagonizing, irritating to say the least. You know, just really not going to bring out the best in you. Yeah, avoid those places. By the end of 30 minutes, I'm too tired. Me too. Jeff, Janie, Jeff, Phil, and that other guy. Yeah. What was his name? Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not going to necessarily be able to help you with that, Dolly, out of self-preservation or freedom not to speak. So I hope that we continue to have a lot of good, honest discussions, but may kindness be our guide, right? That's what the Dalai Lama said. He said, you know, religion isn't inside a temple or anything. It's kindness. If we can be kind to each other, that solves a whole host of problems that we're facing, and we have many of them. Can we just try a little bit to incorporate a little more kindness, you know? And if we do, maybe trust will follow, and people will begin to. That will be the example that will lead us if we can be kind people. You know, and we can still hold divergent views. Nothing wrong with that, but be kind about it. And that's the objection I've heard recently quite a bit from all sides. You know, okay, hold your view, but don't beat someone over the head with it. You know, that isn't helpful at all. And I would think most reasonable people would agree to that on either side of the aisle. You know, incorporate kindness, and when you do, you're incorporating respect. And that's the thing most people want, you know, is respect. Yeah, trust is huge. So anyway, it's 12:25 here in the metropolitan area of Seattle, where I live. I live between Seattle and Tacoma. The best hint for that is I hear planes going overhead. SeaTac Airport is nearby. Um, yeah. Well, and you know, I just there are people. I remember an old Irish proverb: "There's no such thing as strangers, only friends we haven't met yet." I want to invite that Irishman or whoever, Irish woman, whoever came up with that proverb, to come visit us here on YouTube. There are friends are strangers we haven't met yet, and sometimes adversaries, and we don't always want more adversaries, do we? Yeah. So anyway, thank you for being here, and let me look for maybe just a song to go out with. Or I could even play you a Bernie Sanders, a short one that's kind of awesome. He's talking about things not from the left or the right, but from the top and the bottom. And maybe the sooner we learn that, the better off we'll be.
Does anyone really think that the oligarchs give a damn about ordinary Americans? Trust me, they don't. Musk's decision to dismember USAID means that tens of thousands of the poorest people in this world will either go hungry or die of preventable diseases. Tens of thousands of people. But it's not just USAID and what's happening abroad. Here in the United States, mark my words, if we do not stop them, they will soon be going after the health care, nutrition, housing, and educational programs that protect the most vulnerable people in our country. All so that they can raise the money they need to provide huge tax breaks for themselves and for other billionaires. As modern-day kings who believe they have the absolute right to rule, they will sacrifice without hesitation the well-being of working people in order to protect their power and their privileges. Further, they will use the enormous media operations they own to deflect attention away from the impact of their policies while they entertain us to death. Mr. Musk owns Twitter. Mr. Zuckerberg owns Meta, which includes Facebook and Instagram. And Mr. Bezos owns the Washington Post and Twitch.
I don't know if I put my microphone on. I was going to say that that video by Bernie was actually some time ago, and much of what he said was prophetically came true, rather to the point. It's a great distraction for people on left and right, red and blue, Republican, Democrat, to fight amongst ourselves while other people rob the national treasure and our resources and everything else. I think we should not be naive or blind to that. I'm very, very sorry, Dolly. I know what you're talking about. I'm going to go ahead and, I mean, that's rather, you know, but sometimes we have to face the music when we hear it playing. And sometimes the music is not always pleasant to hear. But I'm going to send you out with some more pleasant music. And Dolly will be happy. It's one of her favorite groups. So thank you all for being here.
It's late in the evening. She's wondering what clothes to wear. She puts on her makeup and brushes her long blonde hair. And then she asks me, do I look alright? And I say, you look wonderful tonight. say yes. I feel wonderful tonight. I feel wonderful because I see the love light in your eyes, and the wonder of it all is that you just don't realize how much I love you. It's time to go home now. I've got an aching head, so I give her the car keys. She helps me to bed, and then I tell her as I turn out the light, I say, my darling, you are wonderful tonight. Oh, my darling, you are wonderful tonight.
Good night, everyone. Thanks for being here. I hope you all have a great day.